Click. And we're live. It is Saturday, February 13th, 2021. The former president has been completely and totally vindicated on a bipartisan vote of the largest magnitude ever to convict him of high crimes and misdemeanors, but it was 57 votes instead of 67 votes, and only 7 Republicans instead of 17 Republicans, and that's the difference between conviction and complete and total vindication. But here's the cool thing. The former president cannot tweet that he has been totally and completely vindicated like he did last time, because he's no longer on Twitter. So we are slowly and incrementally making progress. He can be totally and completely vindicated, but he can't claim total and complete vindication, which is another way of saying that we are not allowed to have fun anymore. But neither is Donald Trump, because he's not allowed to tweet total and complete vindication. We are back. Unlike Donald Trump, we can tweet. I could even tweet total and complete vindication.
Well, we don't incite violence, Ben.
It's true.
Unless it's against, like, a bottle of whiskey or something. I know.
This, by the way, is in honor of the Senate filibuster rye whiskey, given to me by one John Bordeaux.
Oh.
Along with a little bit of creme de cacao. So it's kind of like a rye old-fashioned with a little chocolatey flavor. It's very nice. All right. What the agenda for the day?
The agenda for the day.
Plan the show.
Yeah.
Because we haven't done that the last several Saturdays, and it does make the week a little bit more complicated.
It's, like, very stressful. You have, like, picked up all of it because I've been just so drowning. And so you have done 90, thank you so much. And then...
Oh, don't be silly.
Yeah, but it's been great.
But you have the mystery guest tomorrow.
Oh, I forgot, but that's fine. I'll find somebody.
You have the mystery guest, and it's going to be Taylor Swift.
David Remnick. No,
yeah, you should get David Remnick on the show. I have so many questions for David Remnick. Like, why have I never been published in the New Yorker? And, you know, and now that you've gotten rid of Jeffrey Toobin,
do you want a new?
Do you want a general, a legal affairs specialist who will not masturbate on Zoom with your staff?
You have like almost an entire year now of not doing that.
I have a demonstrated track record of never masturbating on Zoom, and so, like, I think, and I'm a much better legal analyst than Jeffrey Toobin. And so, like, I think you should bring David Remnick on the show.
Hold on.
And I will make my pitch.
Yes. Well, we'll see about that.
Doesn't that sound appealing?
Yes, it does.
Like you can set up a job interview for me.
Yes, I don't really know that I'm on those types of terms with David Remnick yet. At least, but maybe we can make a David Remnick puppet or something. Yeah.
Actually, I have to say, I am, when I write outside of Lawfare, it is always for The Atlantic, and I have a actual kind of commitment to them, which is has become pretty deep over the years.
I think that's like, I mean, here's the other thing is, like, you have a pretty distinct voice, and everything people write in the New Yorker gets run through editors. So yes, exactly. Yes. So there's, like, I have to say that was very, as you know, very jarring for me, and to kind of, like, come face to face with. But I think that it's, you know, it's one of those things. So I will think of a mystery guest, and and we should plan the show. But I wanted to really quickly, I think we should talk about the impeachment trial for a second. And then I don't know if you've seen this, Ben, but there's been a lot going on with like Joss Whedon and the Me Too movement.
Really?
Yeah, it's really
I
kind of sad.
haven't heard that. What's going on?
A number of people, they're not necessarily saying anything like he did anything explicitly inappropriate, like sexual harassment or whatever, just that he was a terrible person to work with, called a lot of like women fat, would like belittle them, told them to like get rid of babies when they got pregnant, like not a nice guy type of like thing. And so, to say the least, and it brings up this fascinating problem of like when you have an artist or a like a creator, whether it's Jeffrey Toobin or Michael Jackson or or Joss Whedon, that like, what do you do as a person who's cognizant of the harms that they've created with their art or their product? Like, or Woody Allen is another great one that I struggle with all the time. Like, what do you do? Like, what does it do? Like, can you separate the artist from these pieces of art that they've created?
But isn't that a bigger problem with figures we admire? I mean, we struggle with this with Thomas Jefferson 200 years later.
Yes.
Like, and, you know, I don't think it's a problem limited to artists. It's like, what happens when somebody does something great and also has terrible aspects of their public or private persona?
Right. Well, like one of the really shocking things for me when I was growing up was like my dad, when I was growing up, had me memorize all of these beautiful Robert Frost poems, which I still remember. But he would read me Robert Frost all the time. And as I got older, and I think I was like in like late high school when I started to read that like Robert Frost, poet laureate, all of these things, was also like a wife beater and a congenital like a serial cheater, and like was just like not a great person, and like probably very, I don't know that this is actually, I just kind of imagine, because it's kind of the old school New England thing, like I think of Boston, the Boston Red Sox, and like they were the last team to integrate, and like all of these types of things. I don't know, there's just like this what do you do with that? I don't know.
But why isn't the right answer take the good without apologizing for the bad? I mean, Robert Frost wrote some poems. Ezra Pound wrote some poems and then went to work for Mussolini.
But the other thing is,
and like the poems are still the poems, and I kind of feel that way about, some pretty horrible people, starting with Wagner, who actually made a real contribution on the evil side, unlike his public life is split between the production of revolutionary new music and, the development of modern German nationalistic ideology, including its worst elements, save violence, I suppose. But, I mean, he's a genuine monster.
Yeah.
But,
but there's just like there's a couple of things, and they feel significantly different for me. It's one thing when you have like Jefferson owned slaves, which was a thing a lot of people did and was normalized in that period of time, even though it was horrific. But the norms have shifted, and we don't recognize, but like, we can't illegitimize everything that Thomas Jefferson did because of that, right? And then you have things like decided to defend slavery with their lives and like lead an insurrection against the Union. And that's like a different kind of story, right? But I like all of these things like seem meted out like differently. There's something to be said for norms changing out underneath you. And there's something to be said for things that have always been wrong and should have always been wrong, and people didn't realize, like beating your wife should never have been okay. Like, obviously, it has never been okay, even if it was something we didn't pay as much attention to. But it was never like people were like, oh no, it's okay to beat your wife. Like that was always kind of frowned upon. Like, so I guess like John has this thought experiment that I really like that he kind of used. He's a huge Michael Jackson fan when all the Michael Jackson like allegations came out around his molestation of children and everything else. He was like, what do you do if you had a machine that gave you the best popular music that you'd ever heard in your like lifetime, but for like that popular music song or some of those popular music songs you had to sacrifice like a little like the raping of a little boy, like would you do it? Like would you put that into the machine to get that thing?
No.
And
But,
I know,
but
that's
not the trade that we have, right?
Exactly.
So the trade that we have is whether we have no control over who Michael Jackson was. Now let's leave the financial aspect aside, because I think for living people like Woody Allen, there's a little bit of a different thing going on but we have no control over who they are. We just have control over whether we ignore their good output as well as the bad output of their lives. And I just don't think
that's an interesting way of putting it. That it's all output. That it's not input and output. It's like, yeah,
I don't get to control whether Wagner influenced Hitler in a profound way. I have no control over that. I have no control over the fact that he was a horrible person. I do get to decide whether I enjoy the Meistersingers or not. I just don't. I've never really understood who is the artist historically or the thinker who, if we held up to contemporary standards, we would say
would survive. Like, oh, what a saint.
Yeah, exactly. And so right now there's a I
mean, Emily Dickinson, but
she was basically a hermit.
Yeah, I was just gonna. That was a joke, Ben. Was that she didn't go out of the house, or publish anything until she died, and then everyone published it for her. So, like, that's kind of my point, right? Like, it's like an impossible standard. I don't know how I think that it's one of those things where you have to say, this person, I don't promote this author, but like this particular piece. Like when you talk about interpreting any type of text, the number one thing you learn in like when you're young, like if you take your English 101 is like the death of the author, like the idea that once something is put out into the world, the authorial intent doesn't matter anymore. But it's not just about intent. Maybe now we're kind of broadening that and being like, it's not just about the authorial intent. Maybe the author doesn't matter anymore. They've created something and the thing itself stands and just doesn't matter about like what.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel. Like I am not giving back everything I've ever enjoyed because the author turns out to have, or the creator turns out to have some personality deficiencies up to and including being a seriously evil person. I don't understand why the two things are so deeply connected in people's minds. Okay, you don't like J.K. Rowling because she says some really horrible things about trans people and doubles down on it. I don't like that either, actually, and I'm not going to make the slightest apology for it. But if there's a small child around who wants to read Harry Potter, I'm going to read the kid Harry Potter, and without a second thought as to the morality of that. And I don't feel tainted in doing that by the things she did later in her existence that I really disapprove of.
Yeah.
All right, let's plan the show. I have tweeted at Joe Neguse that he should come on the show.
Oh my God, that would be only amazing.
I think everybody who is listening now should retweet it and add comments. Oh
wow, it's already gotten 71 likes. That was fast.
Yeah, no, people should go for that. I also have written to Orrin Kerr to
I would love
because it's long past time for Orrin Kerr
to be
to
back
return
on.
to
And
the show.
Pope Hat. Why do I link the two of them together? I guess they're both in California.
Yeah, so why don't you write to Pope Hat?
Pope Hat?
And see? Yeah. Now, who in the audience? Hang on. Hold the.
Sorry, I didn't mean to shift that down. I just am trying to see my screen.
Hold the chat for just a moment. Who on the chat has a current list of people we've been working on? Doesn't look like anybody does.
I have a list from a couple weeks ago that I can read. Hold on one second, but let me tweet to Pope Hat.
Tony Cava does.
I thought that he did. Thank you, Tony. Rapture him in.
So let's bring Tony on, and he can talk us through the list. Cava. It's very awkward, Tony, having you not listed as Tony but as Gandalf, because
I just want to say that I'm just hoping, I don't know what he's wearing right now. I don't want him to change outfits, but I'm just hoping he's wearing a onesie pajama suit again. That was like no, damn it.
Do you want me?
No, don't change. That would be awkward.
Don't go changing into my onesie.
But do put on headphones.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but I'm getting an echo on everybody else.
I have headphones on, and the sound is actually playing through my speakers. Hang on.
That's why.
Yes, sir. I think, is that better?
Yes.
You sound better. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, we're there.
All right.
So the list. Well, let me fire that up as an old man poking at my phone.
I also have it, Tony.
You do? Well, there's a couple. Which one do you want to talk about? I've got...
So you sent it to me a while ago, and I think it got so busy. And
absolutely,
wow. I'm
absolutely.
Scrolling through my DMs, and I'm like...
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got one from January 15th to 31st. We haven't talked about that. And then I sent you another one that covered 1 through 15. That's one I'm actually working on right now. Why don't we talk about the Jan 15th through 31st list?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I
just
booked Orrin Kerr for Friday the 19th.
Great.
Okay.
So,
awesome.
What do you think about Nicholas Bagley?
I'm fine with it.
Early on, he's so great at University of Michigan. He's, you know Nick? Do you know Nick?
The property law expert.
No.
The patent
public
law.
Health law expert, yeah. Public health.
Yeah.
Health law sounds rad.
Yeah, he is constitutional law, and he is an expert in health law. But we can save him for when there's something that I think I've had him on he's just super great talking about stuff. So
yeah.
Also, we could have Larry Lessig on again.
Indeed.
But anyway, sorry.
Let's go through our list.
Okay, so this is the list from January 15th to 31st, and just so everyone's clear, this is a list. There's a Discord group that everyone's welcome to join. People make suggestions, I aggregate them and pass them along. So the first one is, and these are in no particular order, Jennifer Session, University of Virginia prof about statue removal.
Okay.
Jennifer.
I don't know her.
Jennifer.
I don't know her either.
Okay.
That's
Jennifer. If anybody hears names that the hosts don't know, maybe you could
explain why they
explain what you're thinking in the chat. Then Jennifer Taub.
I will. Oh, Jennifer Taub, we do know. Don't we know her?
Okay.
Yes, I know Jennifer Taub.
I know who she is. I don't know her personally.
White collar crime.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Last month, there was a lot of interest in student loan debt. So the name Sylvanie Catherine, I believe, Konstantin Yanelis. For student loan debt?
I don't know either of those people.
Yeah, me neither.
But it should. Okay. But that's a subject I don't know well at all. So
right.
So here's the thing here's the thing for you and the audience to know, Tony, is we know that people. It usually is very easy to try to get them on the show.
Yes.
If we don't know them at all, it's like a fair amount of logistics and time asking and explaining of the show and what it is and how to do it and everything else. And so it's just like exhausting. That's why we end up going to people that know and trust us already. So that's not to like say that we shouldn't expand out, but it just is like, okay.
I totally get that.
I don't know Jennifer Taub, but I can totally ask her for this week. She follows me, so let me check her right now.
I also just invited Mike Duncan, who a bunch of people in the audience have been asking for a long time.
Great. Sorry, keep going, Mike or Tony.
You guys are muted right now.
Really?
No, we're not.
That's weird.
I think I've lost audio.
You've lost audio? Let's get rid of Tony and bring him back, and that way he will regain audio. Can you hear us?
I can indeed. I think I'm getting texts, and every time I get a text, it kind of stuff.
Now we're having trouble hearing you, or at least I am. You're very quiet.
Oh, okay. Let me check again and see where the device is. My AirPods and AirPods should be good. Are we good?
You're still really quiet.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let me try something. How about now?
I can hear you fine.
You're so far away. Can you go to the top of the screen and play and make sure that you're hooked up to your AirPods?
That's what I'm looking at right now. It says I am. Hang on 1 second. I'm just going to turn my Bluetooth on and off.
You could also go to the go to your settings and check your input levels. Maybe I don't know why that would have suddenly changed, but
all right.
Okay. I just texted Jen. I just texted Popat. So I do know Jennifer Taub. She's great. Is there?
You are muted now, Tony. I don't know why. All right, we're going to try Tony in the chat. Folks in the Greek chorus, leave space for Tony to chat. Sorry,
Tony. Yeah, Tony.
Abanoob, I have invited Michael Beschloss on, and he has said he is too busy to do it right now, but we will try again sometime soon. So Tony, who else are we talking about?
So I think that he had, let me look at the list that he recently sent me so that he doesn't have to, it's not all on him. He said he had some people that were, Tutu Title at NYU, the Truth and Reconciliation Transitional Justice. That would be really good.
That's a good subject. We should also have Quinta on that subject.
Yeah, I would love that.
As to people who are asking about Steve Tellis, I know Steve Tellis well and would be happy to invite him. He's a very good guy and very smart. As to people who are asking about Jamie Raskin, there is no way I am inviting him on the show right now. He just lost his son and immediately went into this impeachment. And I think I don't know if he's going to be doing any media, but I would rather give him a little space for himself at this point. Kevin Cruz, we he and I went back and forth, and I will shoot him a text right now to see if he, or a tweet right now to see if he's game to do it this week.
I can ask, I can send an email to title J. Van Bavel at NYU. I also can send an email to him. I've worked with him. I think I was in like one project with him at one point. I don't know if it ever published anything, but we were working on a project and he was on it. Charles Kupchan at Georgetown.
I know Charlie Kupchan.
Okay. I went to that school and I do not know him. He's not at the law school. He's at the university.
Yeah. He's in the government department, or the whatever they call it, the politics department, I believe.
Then we have Mike Waldman or Louis Claveris, Second Amendment.
I know Mike Waldman.
Yeah, Mike Waldman. I feel like I know that name. Like I don't.
Yes, he runs the Brennan Center.
Oh, that's why I know the name. Oh, okay.
Ronan Bergman is a very interesting idea. I think he's in Israel, though, which creates time difference issues. No, we are not going to have Louis Gohmert on the show. But it is time to revisit the Clint Watts question.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Then we have Richard Landis, Millenarian Movements.
I do not know.
I don't know who that is.
But we can look into that.
Amanda Gorman, Creativity. Also don't know what that is. Juliet Kayyem.
We've had Juliet on the show.
That's what I thought.
And
I was just going to ask.
Would love to have her back.
Yeah, we should have her back. Then there's me. We did that yesterday. And then there's L.D. Burnett, Collins College, to discuss No Such Thing as Cancel Culture piece. Okay, I haven't read that. I don't know who L.D. Burnett is.
Yeah, if y'all want to start a campaign to get Amanda Gorman to come on, I'd love that. Amanda
Gorman is that Amanda Gorman? Jesus Christ! Yeah, no,
that's like Taylor Swift level.
What do you think
nonsense.
That we're like? Yeah, I'm like Barack Obama should come on the show, or like you should have like Taylor Swift on. Like when is that gonna happen?
Yeah, but we're
aspirational, if nothing, in lieu of fun. Pauline Shanks Corin, Philosophy and Military.
I do not know her.
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
Matt Levine, I'm a huge fan of. Bloomberg.
Invite him.
Yeah, I will invite Matt Levine. He would be wonderful. I don't know that he writes he writes his newsletter for Wall Street Journal that is you should subscribe to it. It's actually, if you just want something smart on like what it is you should be thinking about the markets and what it is you should be thinking about like domestic economies or like the economy in general, like his is the most well-written take and smart take that I don't know. It's very good. So yeah, he would be great. John McWhorter, yes. We're going to try to get John McWhorter on.
I have been, so I don't know how to, let me see if John McWhorter has a known email, because I have tweeted at him repeatedly. He's also been involved in some very interesting recent debates and disputes that I think would be super interesting to engage with him over. Oh, he does have an email.
Elvis is the mystery guest, Colleen. Colleen guessed it. That's who's. Sorry, the entire chat has become all of the people that would be insane to have on the show. But yes, that's exactly right. We should have David Allen Green back on. That is. We should. Michael Beschloss.
Yes, we have discussed that.
Yeah.
All right. that gets us to we've got a lot of lines in the water, and hate is a great idea.
I could do that. I know hate, or I
Look,
don't. I don't actually have never like we've been at like a lot of things together, but like never spoken. But I can try to like try that. I don't know.
Christopher
And like
Argyris, we
unless you
can't
have,
get Amanda Sloat because she's working in the White House right
yeah,
now.
yep. And like, and wait, Ben, do you have a line to hate that's better than me, Jonathan?
Probably
Hate?
not.
Okay, then I will go for it.
All right.
But he's like kind of a big deal, so.
Let's.
It might be pronounced height. I have no idea.
No, I think it's hate.
Everyone on this show thinks that I'm an idiot about, or like knows that I'm an idiot for pronouncing these. Okay, Eugene Volokh is like.
He's been on the show before. He's been on the
show before, and he could come back. We could have him on. Do you want to do Eugene Volokh again?
Sure, happy to invite Eugene.
Great. I just spoke to him. He just gave me a quote for that piece that came out, so I can reach out to him. All
right, we've got 100 lines in the wire now. In the water now.
I feel good about this. Well, it's like there's like one like only Fridays booked, Ben.
I believe, and even that's tentative. As to Rosa Brooks on her new book, believe it or not, her new book is in the mail to me from her publisher, which is getting in touch to book her on the show. So we will have Rosa Brooks on the show.
Oh, good.
Pretty soon.
We should. He just went to the administration. Fuck.
Who's this?
Sabeel Rahman. I have had him on my head in my mind for a while now to have on.
Julie F. Rachel Vindman knows she's welcome on the show anytime. You should tweet at her and tell her to come on the show. All right. We are going to stop now and take some questions. Yes, Richard Wattenberger, we have a line out to Rosa Luxemburg. But, having been dead for 100 years makes it hard to book people. It's working on it.
We're going to make an Emily Dickinson puppet, and she'll be here too, along with her.
You should all tweet at Rosa Luxemburg and just tell her to come on the show, even though she's dead. Okay.
Okay, so should I ask? I'm going to send an email to Eugene.
I'm going to invite the top 4 people in the Q&A on.
Great.
And they're going to ask questions in whatever order they show up. Christopher Argyris.
All right.
You showed up first. You get the first question.
Good evening. So Rich of Mitch McConnell to play the, it's too early to impeach Trump after the 6th, but it's too late after the 20th. And then Nancy Pelosi was righteously angry about that tonight. She came out with the House impeachment managers and said, our hands were tied there because he held it wasn't us that didn't we didn't hold back on delivering the impeachment. It was not received until it was too late. Anyway, so my question has to do with what was the play, do you think, for getting past the witness hurdle but not calling any witnesses? I had 2 possible theories, and of course it could be anything else besides that. But one was that they, as they said in their post conference, that they felt they proved their case and they didn't need any more witnesses to make the case. The other theory is that they were looking sort of for comity on the Biden COVID relief bill, and they want to sort of get on with the business of the administration. And then the other theory was, that as sort of McConnell said, it's not over yet for Trump, that there's some faint hope that he will face criminal charges for incitement or other abuses of power and law. So what do you think was what was the play behind not calling any witnesses after clearing that witnesses hurdle?
So I think what happened, this is what I can piece together today, with no particular reporting, but just from circumstances. I think what happened is the following. Raskin threw everybody a curveball this morning. The CNN story came out last night. They saw an opportunity through it to focus on Trump's behavior during the episode. We now have just confirmed for Wednesday with former FBI Director Jim Comey.
Comey just confirmed?
Yes.
Wow.
And, he's got a new book out, and
just, everyday thing. We're interviewing the former FBI director or whatever. This is completely the life that I've chosen.
It's a matter of public record that we're kind of buds, but
I know.
So I think what happened was, a lot of the Democrats, first of all, didn't want to have witnesses, but they had not ruled it out because they didn't want to undermine the impeachment managers. So they said they would defer to the impeachment managers, but they didn't anticipate it, blah, blah, blah. So then the impeachment managers come out and make a totally reasonable request, which is one witness for less than an hour that we want to have on in order to talk about our, this news story that's obviously germane to the record. So they all vote for it. And then the thing goes into turmoil because the president's lawyers are threatening to try to bring, hundreds of witnesses. And Mitch McConnell, I think probably threw around a lot of weight to try to say, well, wait a minute, if you do this, you're not going to get anything else done for a while. And, the minority does have the ability to hold a lot of things up, particularly legislatively. And so you end up in this land where you need a compromise arrangement where all the managers really need is the ability to use this fact. By the way, the fact turns out to be really important for them. I think they get 3 votes they wouldn't otherwise get without it. It's not clear. It's clear. We saw Cassidy's draft statement.
Yeah, I can figure it out.
Right. So this is and I think Burr's a complicated guy. I think pretty highly of him. He's very bright and he's very capable, but he hadn't shown a lot of sign of being an available vote, right? And and I also think it probably firmed up some other people who were, the Toomeys and Sasses who were leaning that way, but really wanted to see something. If you look at Romney's questions, he was clearly thinking about what's the evidence that the president knew what was going on and behaved disgracefully, rather than simply inferring that from the aggregate. And this kind of slipped right in there. So I think the question that eventually Democrats faced is, okay, do you throw the whole Senate into turmoil, or do you give Raskin and company the specific piece that they need to improve their case? So I think everybody could compromise on that. And by the way, it's a huge sigh of relief to Republicans who don't have to sit there while, multiple witnesses testify. So I think that's what happened. But I don't know. And, we will learn over the next few days.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks, Kate.
Richard Wattenbarger, the floor is yours. Oh, sorry, Pauline. You both showed up at the same time.
Hi, Pauline.
Pauline, you go first. Because you showed up first.
Okay. I pressed accept way back, but anyway, okay.
But hold on, Pauline, I miss my birds. They are having left Cape Cod. It's John and I have been talking about how we would just kind of all of a sudden get lost in watching the birds at the feeder and loving how they came in, and the downies, and we had these 5 bluebirds that would swarm. It was just it was so lovely, and I miss it a lot. Sorry.
I
Anyways,
was
I know
afraid you'd miss your old, your Cape Cod place.
I would. I do. It's a
Yeah.
bummer. I miss the turkeys. The turkeys were fun, even though
Yeah.
they're like disgusting and they poop everywhere and peck at your shit and like I don't know. Like,
Well, that's it. Yeah. With my question, I think you pretty much covered it. It was about what is McConnell up to, and with the witnesses thing, I was thinking maybe once it got into hundreds of witnesses, that Biden just sent down a memo that said no, no, and maybe they put maybe part of the deal was for McConnell to approve Garland's nomination quickly, and now we're all good and going forward. And thank you so much, Ben, for the Lawfare Live this week. It's really been good.
I've been bummed not to watch them. I would have loved
Yeah.
that.
So
They were
they
great.
are all available on the site.
Great.
And we will not be doing one tomorrow morning since
Yeah.
the thing is over now. Look, I think the thing that is up with McConnell is, and I've said this before, and everybody thinks I'm sort of joking about it, but I'm not. I mean it both seriously and literally. He is basically a vote counting machine, and he represents the center of gravity of his caucus with a precision that is very close to what a political scientist would expect. He knows where the median vote in the caucus is, and he will never get on the wrong side of that. And so I think what happens with McConnell is he saw that, first of all, he clearly believes the case is strong. He clearly believes that Trump behaved disgracefully. But at the end of the day, he's got 43 members of his caucus on one side of this issue and 7 on the other. He will never be the 8th, or rather 47 and 42, right? He will never be the 8th vote on anything within his caucus at the expense of the 42. Never, never, never. And so if you want to understand where McConnell is, look for the majority of his caucus. He will situate himself as close to the median vote of that as he is capable of doing. And in this case, the body of the caucus is on the side of acquittal. So McConnell, reflecting his actual beliefs, gives a speech that about the what he thinks the president did, but reflecting his role as he understands it as the leader of his caucus, as well as an ingrained sense in him that that is how you position yourself, because he doesn't actually believe in anything. He will never vote with 7 members of his caucus against 42 members of his caucus. He's too much of a party apparatus guy to do that. So that's what I think. It's not actually more complicated than that. All right, Richard, this time for real. The floor is yours.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, Kate, I have a 4-part question for you. This is
Take notes, Kate.
this is for 200 points in the win. So,
I don't have anything to write on, so I'm going to write on this folder. Go ahead.
That's okay. So basically, I'm asking you to tell a story. So did you always plan to go to law school? And what did you envision that you'd do with your law degree? And what made you decide to pursue a doctorate, which we all know is a crazy thing. We who've done doctorates know is a crazy thing to do. And were your plans to pursue the doctorate in law, or did you consider other related fields as well?
Oh my God, that's actually, thank you for asking me that. That's like a very sweet thing that you're interested in my response. Did I plan to go to law school? I think it's one of those things where like both your parents went to law school. So like, it's not, I don't know that my brother didn't go to law school or professional school. He ended up getting a master's, but anyways, but like, I do think that like, there was something like I always thought that I would go to graduate school at some point. Like I kind of felt that like in my bones. And so when I was at TPM, I just remember really, really clearly, honestly, like calling reporters, and actually it was Carrie Johnson in this conversation that she doesn't quite remember, which makes sense, which is fine. But like, I just was like so aware of how much I didn't know. Like I just like didn't know or understand how dumb my questions were to people, even though I had been raised in a legal household. And like, I think that that's kind of why I decided to go to law school. But I didn't go, and I went before the like, or right at the after the like the market crash, and so there was like a lot of people were going to law school. Looking back, I don't know that I would ever advise anyone to go with so little idea of what they wanted to do coming out of it. In fact, the only thing I knew going into it was that I didn't want to be a big firm lawyer, and that was actually very consistent with my summer associate experience. As for the PhD, I really kind of found, like, I kind of really backed myself into that. It was basically a very slow process of finding out that I wanted to do academia. I wrote a paper for Rebecca Tushnet, who's now at Harvard Law, when she was my copyright professor, and she liked it so much that she gave me her access to her account to submit to law reviews at Georgetown for free, because it cost money to submit to law reviews. And she was like, this is so good, you should submit it. And I submitted to all these law reviews, and she encouraged me. And one of my other property professor was like, you have a tremendous talent for writing. Like, why don't you write about this, like this issue? No one's written about it. And I wrote a law review piece. And then it was kind of like this aha moment of like, oh, you can like write about things. There's legal academia. And that was me discovering legal academia. And it wasn't really until I went to Yale, I went to the IIT, that I realized that I wanted to do academia at all, or that that's what I was signing up for, to be honest. And I had a long conversation because I was still super, super interested in my cognitive psychology work. And I thought that I really should go and get a degree in cognitive psychology because it was what I was more interested in. And so what I decided was basically I would like, but that was 7 years. And the thing that I chose was going to be 3 years. And I just kind of felt like the things that the 7-year program would be training me for were not going to be things that would like jettison me into legal academia, if that makes sense. They would jettison me into social science academia, but not legal academia. And I didn't need the training to be in social science academia. So I went with the 3-year program. That was like basically if you already have a JD, you can apply to be in this 3-year like PhD program for the law school. And so that's what I did. But yeah, I don't know. All of it has been like, it is far less, like, I would say that I planned my year in like my life in like 2-year spurts. Like nothing was ever planned out more than 2 years in advance. And it's been that way for about a decade and a half. I just would like, it would be great to be able to, like, when John and I were like, should we buy a house? And it's just kind of like, we just don't know, like, what's going to be like happening or what's going to be going on. It's really hard. Like, it's an exhausting kind of way to live your life. It's exciting, but it's rewarding, and you get to do what you really want to do, but there's not as much stability.
All right. Mr. Botts, the floor is yours.
This is such a good background.
Hey, Ben, thank you for bringing me on. Kate,
Nina, you're such an idiot. She's like coughing under my desk right now.
Kate, I hope you are recovering from publishing.
That's
and
so sweet.
Feeling better.
Yeah.
I hope. Okay.
Yeah, it'll happen. It's like happening. It's good. I'm like fine. Don't worry about me. I'm like fine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, many of us worry about you. We
I
fret.
know. I'm fine. No, I'm fine.
So, for both of you, what are some of the lessons that you are taking from the trial this week? So that's a serious question. The less serious question is, although the issues of content moderation, deplatforming, and Section 230 are complex, isn't it nice that for at least this week, we did not have a former official rage tweeting at all of us all day and all night.
I'm going to
Oh my
let Kate
gosh,
take the
yes.
first crack at these because all content on all matters of content moderation, I defer to Kate as a matter of principle.
Well, wait, hold on. What was the first question? I thought it was like what is the from the trial this week.
Yeah,
Okay,
lessons from the trial.
and
But
the issues of content moderation.
so you take the content moderation stuff, and I will take the lessons of
Okay,
the trial.
so I guess I will say that like I think that the lessons from content moderation are like really complex and they overlap with some of the work that Evelyn has been doing and we've talked about already on the show. But I think I want to kind of draw a line under this point. I know we get yelled at for saying foot stomp, but like so I'm gonna draw a line under it and said highlight in blue. Like I don't know what the fuck you want me to say, but like I want to emphasize this point, which is that like there has been it's been like I was just talking to John about this, like it has just been a dizzying ride for 5 years, like in terms of like starting off every single one of my projects with people being skeptical or kind of like, oh okay, like yeah, I guess that's a thing, like maybe you could do something on that, to then by the time it comes out it being like a dispositive kind of piece. And like I think that that's just kind of, it creates a lot of what I'm seeing right now is that like in the space specifically of Facebook's content moderation, you have a group of people that have been very dismissive of it and not wanting to legitimize it. And I'm just really sorry. You just like don't get to decide whether something becomes legitimate or not just by like not paying attention to it or not. Like some things have power and it's socially defined and it's complicated. Like, and I didn't make that so, and neither did Evelyn and blah, blah, blah. And I think that there is a point at which you have to kind of realize that like you've studied something like this and you've either studied it in really deep detail or you haven't. And so like what feels like is happening right now in content moderation is that there's a lot of people that are waking up to how powerful Facebook really is in light of regulatory power, and that regulatory power might not be the answer to that type of incredible power. And that like things like this oversight board might be some answer, or they might be in it like or not. They like
or
could
part of some answer.
Or part of some answer. And they're upset that they haven't been following it since the very beginning, and they think that like people who are in the pocket of Facebook. And it's just like I would just say that like that's a lazy person. Like no one, like I was actually Virginia Heffernan like texted like or like DM'd me. I think she'd be fine with me saying this, but she DM'd me. She's like, "Is everything okay?" Like, because I'm seeing all these like alerts that like people are dragging you and blah blah. And I was like, "Yeah." You know, she's like, you reported the hell out of that piece. I was like, people don't even know. It wasn't even like I just sat at Facebook and took whatever they told me. That would make me an idiot. I took everything they said to me and flew myself around the world on like, not in fun ways, like in 24-hour trips that I'd go in and out of Israel, in and out of Germany, in and out of the UK, like, or wherever, like to present all of this information to experts and see what they thought of like what was happening and to get their feedback. And like I don't even know any journalists that do that. Like I was just like trying to get this from all angles and to share it and to be out and open about it. And so I don't know, like I think that right now the media reaction on this is a little bit out over its skis, so to say.
All
Sorry,
right,
Ben.
Very quickly on lessons of the trial, I will just say, first of all, first lesson of the trial is that the quality of advocacy really matters. And, the managers team did a really remarkable job with this. Raskin gets a lot of credit. Nagoose gets a lot of credit. Stacy Plaskett gets a lot of credit. They put together a really good team. I don't know, by the way, who put together that team, whether that was a Pelosi thing or a Raskin thing. But that was an exceedingly well done set of presentations, and they deserve a lot of credit for it. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two, you have to work within the constraints that the Senate gives you. And in the first impeachment trial, where they were faced with the possibility of no witnesses, they simply spent the entire time arguing for witnesses and arguing, here's what we'll show if we hear from blank, right? And this time, faced with a similar situation, they didn't do that. They just presented the case with the assumption that they weren't going to get it. And it was dramatically more effective. It was, by the way, also an easier case to present in significant ways, because you had so much video evidence, and because it involved, people storming the Capitol rather than, a phone call with the president of Ukraine. But there was also a strategic element of that. And then finally, third lesson is that it really is, yes, the prize is at 67 votes, but there really is a difference between getting one Republican and getting 6 Republicans. And I think, Donald Trump is not a happy man today. If he had a Twitter feed, we'd be able to see that. And I don't think he would, I don't think it would be he would be thrilled to know that he'd lost Richard Burr and, Bill Cassidy. And I do think, these things are done in small increments. And I think the lesson of this impeachment trial, frankly, is that each and every one of those small increments is important. Mike Godwin, you get the last question today.
Hi. So I just wanted to add one thing to what you were saying, Ben. The other thing that if I were to draw a lesson, I might not have used the word incitement in the way that the articles of impeachment did, because of the defense could then play on Brandenburg versus Ohio and essentially obscure the role that the president had in stirring up the impulse to violence and insurrection over the last 100 days. So that I think is one thing I would have changed.
So this is a very important point. I don't want to beat up on the article too much, because the circumstances in which it was drafted are genuinely difficult. I mean, the guy had lost his son a few days earlier. He was under the incredible stress of the riot itself, with his other kids in the building at the time. So I don't want to be I don't want to be reptilian about it. That said, if you think about it from a lawyerly perspective, the article was not especially well drafted, given the case they evidently wanted to put on. It should have been 3 separate articles: one about the president's behavior in refusing to accept the results of the election; number 2, about the stoking of the incident itself; and number 3 about, and most importantly, because this is the one that got the most, this is where the votes were, his dereliction of duty and his abandonment of his constitutional responsibilities to repel the thing once it had started. And I think these were actually 3 separate articles, if you, with the benefit of hindsight and watching the case they put on. The effort to merge them together created a little bit of a mess for them. That said, I don't think the result would have been any different. So and I don't think the presentation of the case would have been all that different. Anyway, the floor is yours. Your question.
So my real question, of course, is about Joss Whedon and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because just as we found a few weeks ago that a lot of us have sort of the John le Carre secret handshake in common, we also, a lot of us have the Joss Whedon Buffy the Vampire Slayer secret handshake in common. And So it's interesting to me. I mean, we've known for a while that Whedon had feet of clay, for other reasons. But this recent stuff emerging
It's
is
so
really
big.
It's that. Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that is my daughter and I.
Other stuff emerging is like so
Yeah.
big, but it's like you can't say anything but that,
can't
because
really
it's
say
like
anything
there's
more.
nothing else that they're giving you.
Right, and it's a little bit crazy making, right? Because, like, if you compare it to, Jeffrey Epstein or Bill Cosby, the details of the bad behavior are so consistent among many different cases and objects of the bad behavior. But here, I know there's some general stuff about making actors feel bad, which, which I get. But then it seems to say more, but then no one has quite said more. So that's a little bit troubling. I guess one of the things that my takeaway from it was I still feel, by the way, my daughter and I were talking about this a lot earlier today because I introduced her to Buffy. So we have Buffy in common as a family thing. And we're both like saying, Joss Whedon, what do we think? And it's a little bit hard to deal with. But we still like the stuff. We still think the works themselves have huge amount of, they're hugely feminist.
Just go with, I'm just saying, just go with great director, great creative mind, shitty person.
Yeah, but it's really weird, Ben, because because the work itself has become a feminist icon. It's like
that's okay. What's wrong with that?
Because it seems weird that a person who is so shitty to women and so terrible.
Margaret Sanger is a feminist icon, and she was a eugenicist.
But that doesn't directly contrast with feminist in exactly the same.
Actually, it does.
Does
it? She kind of believed in forced sterilization of people.
Oh yes, well that's true.
People are multifaceted, and they do all kinds of terrible shit to each other, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer is still hilarious. And by the way, so is some of the other stuff. I think the Western,
Firefly.
Firefly is genius.
Brilliant. Firefly is truly brilliant. Especially the Chinese.
And Dollhouse started out seeming like it might be terrible, and then it was wrapped up into something really kind of brilliant.
It really did end up good. It did start out terrible. So did Buffy. I mean, listen, Mike, I agree with you. I think that, I really do think that, there is something to the vision that he has, but he's a flawed human, and he may be truly, I guess I look at the complaints and their vagueness, and I'm like, you seem like you were just, a really bad boss. You just seem like you were a terrible boss. You seem like you treated your employees badly, and now here is a lesson for you. When you are going to be giving your employees this huge spotlight and this huge voice and this huge presence and making them the world loves them as their characters, you should treat them well, because they are going to have their own power that they are imbued with because of what you're creating and can come back to you. And if for no other reason than just being a good person. But oh my God. Yeah, I don't know.
Look,
I agree
being
with
a
that.
good person is totally underrated. And I had this friend once.
Underrated?
Yeah,
it's no one rates it at all.
No,
you
but
can be a good person for till the cows come home.
Exactly.
And you don't get any, no one gives a shit.
I had this friend who was I'm gonna leave names out of this for reasons that will become obvious, who was dating and has for the last 20 years or so been married to the most boring guy in the world. And this woman is not boring at all. She's super interesting and engaging. And I once, just being young and in my 20s or whatever I was, just asked her about it. What's up with that? You're super interesting. He's not. What gives? And she said, I used to be into interesting. And interesting came with abusive, and interesting came with, it was a long list. She She said, nice is really underrated. And I have so much respect for that. And so, like, I am totally down.
What a good lesson. I love that.
Totally
That's so
down
true.
for, nice. But when we have these people who are super productive, who do really interesting things, I'm totally fine with canceling them, by the way. I'm not making an argument against cancel culture.
Right.
Totally fine with canceling them. Don't throw out the work.
Well, I think that actually, and I'm curious what Mike thinks just really quickly. Like Sarah Michelle Gellar had like a comment after Charisma Carpenter posted these comments, and she was just like, say in alignment basically, but saying that she thinks that that she identifies with the character of Buffy and like thinks that it's like I don't know, that sounds stupid and kind of silly to people that aren't familiar with it, but I think that it makes a big deal. She's delineating between what she's doing there is delineating between the work and what it means to people and how it inspires people.
What she said very specifically was, I don't mind being identified with Buffy for the rest of my life, but I certainly hope I'm not going to be identified with Joss Whedon for the rest of my life. And
that's exactly what she said. And so that was it was like, I thought that was perfect. I was like, yes, you are Buffy, and I'm really sorry. Like, you just are. For the rest of like your life, you're going to have to like live with that. Was like
it makes me feel a little bad for Christy Swanson, though. But Christy Swanson, the other Buffy, for those of you who don't.
I don't feel bad for her at all, actually, because she did that horrible play based on where she played Lisa Page and read her text messages. I think she can get tagged with this for the rest of her life. We are going to leave it there. The Lisa Page puppet, by the way, agrees with me entirely. We will be back tomorrow with Kate's mystery guest, Taylor Swift. And that'll be 22 hours and 52 minutes from now. And until then, Kate?
We don't have fun anymore. But in lieu of fun, we can try to enjoy great works of art